So, Sal, I'm curious. I don't know if you know, but Monero is going to be live on THORChain here in like a month or two, and it'll take
Hopefully.
after. Yeah, well, I think it will go live. It's just once it's live, still needs to
Yeah.
be tested and played with. But probably won't be production ready for another, say, 3 or 4 months. It's got the community. Everyone's super excited. Monero community's been paying attention. They're excited. But we have, some people are like, well, they get obviously they get the freedom side of things, but it's like this could create a perfect mixer in Thorchain in crypto. Thorchain's making it possible. Does this invite the eye of Sauron? And should we worry? Like, could be bad for us? Maybe that we get if becomes a hotbed of illegal activity, which obviously we don't want to support, but it's going to happen. It's inevitable. Do you think it's something we should be worried about, scared about? Do you think it could happen? Do you think maybe we're overreacting? I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
So I've got the Monero hat on, so it's appropriate an appropriate talking point. But it's interesting because like in one sense, Monero is one of the most censored cryptocurrencies out there, but it's censored because it's effective. But I think was it that when do you remember when Zuko went to like the SEC or something, and like the government actually issued a statement like shortly after, before, right around that time, that they said something like they want you to like use encryption, and like they want you to protect your privacy because foreign actors, it's going to prevent foreign actors from getting your data. Well, um one would think that like they would be more open to privacy coins and stuff like that. So I'm hopeful, and I do think that there's the trend is sort of shifting away now, slowly, albeit, but we are getting to a more like accepting state where like these privacy coins and base layer privacy is much more acceptable on chain. So I'm not convinced that it's an issue, but I don't know. You're right though. The Eye of Sauron, you never know. All they have to do is just target you with their gaze, and that's it. So who knows? But let's pray not though.
Yeah, but that shouldn't stop us from moving forward, right?
No.
Like this is, at some point we got to take a stand. At some point we got to do this stuff and try this stuff.
And the only way you're never gonna get freedom by you get freedom by like pushing the limit, not by existing within the boundaries. Let's say we step out of line, and then they come in and say, no, 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 you got to move back 10 feet. Okay, fine, whatever. You don't want to have any problems, but as long as we stretch that boundary and we find out where that boundary is, we push it as much as possible. That's the important part here.
Yeah, yeah. We can't comply our way out of tyranny.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Do you want to go,
Well,
Denny?
hey,
Yeah.
yeah, well, so, hey, Sal, I'm so glad you're here. I wanted to bring up your website because, yeah, like Kenton, I watch you all the time on X, and I
Nice.
did a I actually wasn't that familiar with algorithm, or maybe not at all, because I did attempt to get into politics to try and fix the problem, and then because I wanted information, right, and I realized, well, man, this system is so effed up. I'm going back to THORChain, you know what I mean? So I'm
Right.
technically still, but I was hoping like let's try and fix. But I know a lot, like you're seeing it now, like people like yourself, when you said you have a following, like you're exploding in popularity because people are waking up. They're looking around like, wait a minute, what the f is going on right now?
Right.
And so I'm trusting the process, right? I think we are naturally going to the state, but I wanted to bring up your website here because you do a lot, man. You're not just doing like podcasts. You're an author. You've got 3 separate books. You've got the website. I'm gonna bring up here saltheagorist.com. You guys disintermediate the state. And if you click read the books here, here's are your 3 books: Anti-Politics, The American Experiment, What Your History Teacher Didn't Tell You, and 3 books that changed the world. So I'll go ahead and kick it to you, Sal, if you wanted to riff on that at all, if you want anyone to know anything else.
Yeah, so actually this website, we just launched this website the other day. But yeah, I'm a busy man. So Anti-Politics was my first book. This is about like agorist philosophy. If you're interested, it's really just sort of like a collection of agorist essays from like a million different anarchist thinkers and authors. A handful of them are like originals from like a blog I used to write. And the American Experiment is that one. I wrote that one from cover to cover. It's a sort of a complete encapsulation of revisionist history because we have been lied to about so many historical events that it's very disturbing. And I think if people like, you know, if people knew the truth, they would be shocked. And we've had over time different authors and different writers talk about one particular episode in history and how the state lied about it and manipulated the situation both during and afterwards in order to make it like paint them in the best light. And what I did in the American Experiment was I took all of those together and I just sort of completed the revisionist narrative. So it starts with like the Greeks and like the founding of democracy, and it ends with like I don't know, Trump or Biden or Obama, something like that, somewhere around there. And when I was writing it, I was like, there's so much in here we've been lied to about such a huge amount of shit that I don't actually have time to write about all of it. I was like, I'll come back and I'll visit some of these topics in later books. And Three Books That Changed the World is one of those. And that's sort of a revisionist take on the progressive era, which is really one of the worst times in American history when we went from what remained of a republic to this global facing militarized empire of a nation of debt slaves. So that book is sort of it's a very niche. You got to be a big libertarian nerd and like maybe a history buff to enjoy that one. But the American Experiment and Anti-Politics were the two most popular ones for sure.
But the three
I
books that changed the world, can you tell us what the books are? Or is that
So the No, of course, yeah. So there's three books that these are all written in the progressive era, and there's you can actually look at the progressive era. It sort of is divided into three different parts, like the early progressive era of like McKinley, and then you have like the like Woodrow Wilson, TR kind of days.
sorry, Sal, can you give us some dates? So just for maybe we have
Yeah, so
foreigners, people aren't familiar
this
with US history, like yeah, some dates that you're referring to?
yeah, I would say the progressive era probably runs from about 1898 to the end of World War One. World War One was sort of like the capstone achievement um, of that whole thing. But yeah, it was really fun to write, and a lot of like research went into it. But it's one of those things where it's like the more the deeper you dig, the more you realize just how entrenched the sewer is. I mean, a lot of the shit that we experience today can be directly traced back to this time. Of course, the cryptocurrency stuff, like it all started in 1913, right? That's what the whole need for cryptocurrency is. It's really just a cartelization of the banking sector, and Rothbard wrote about compulsory cartelization, and that's what we have in the banking sector. And the state has sort of upheld that monopoly, and cryptocurrency is like the sort of the only way to break that cartel. So all this is in that the progressive era is like a just. I mean, again, there's just so much to dig into. The first book that we talk about is The Jungle, Upton Sinclair, and that was like this labor propaganda book, this like socialist propaganda book that was very popular, and it led to like a shit ton of reforms, and more so than reforms, it led to the idea of it's acceptable for the state to regulate these industries that were once completely private. Um, but yeah, it's an interesting thing. The second book it was Woodrow Wilson had Colonel House was actually the guy's name, and he wrote a book about like a fake presidency and like in the progressive era, and literally everything he wrote in this book he instituted once Woodrow Wilson he sort of manipulated Wilson, and instituted all of these crazy progressive reforms. Like, I don't know, there's a whole number of them in there. So check that out. And then the third one is this little known book called Christine, which was a World War I propaganda book. And that was like, the Germans are the big bad boogeyman, and we have to, go to war against them. But it's funny though, because again, like all of the things that that we're talking about today were started at this time, and that's kind of why I wanted to shed a light on all that. So.